What's up, y'all? This is Eminem.
It's Katy Perry.
This is Robin Thicke.
What's going on? This is Drake.
I'm Emily Sunday.
This is Jay-Z. Jay-Z.
I've been lifted.
#1 hit music station.
Yeah. Let's get back to the music.
Star FM. Sounding good all the time.
Today's best
Music.
Star.
Me no DJ, at school, hear the man. No say me is a at school DJ. At school, son, Mr. Sutherland.
I think that I found myself a cheerleader. She is always right there when I need her.
On Star FM, radio so good you can watch it.
To open this up around the elections in general, because as we said, our hashtag is Z2018, focusing on the Zimbabwe election debates right here up until the elections happen. Now, you touched on a number of points, and just to put this issue to bed around this division, do you not think it's a little bit selfish as a leader of a party to say that the business of the day is not who's leading? What inspiration does it give the Zimbabwe electorate when you yourselves as a party are not united? It's very difficult for us to look at you as a solid alternative when there's so much infighting.
We are absolutely united. We had a general council a week ago where every member who was elected at our Congress attended, except 3 people, Gordon Moyo, Lucia Matibenga, and Tini. So we consider those comrades on sabbatical. Once they sober up, they will come. And in their absence, we appointed 3 competent Zimbabweans to carry out their function. We appointed Settlement Chikwinya as acting Secretary General. We appointed Mrs. Masaiti Muzungu as our chairperson, and we appointed Julius Magarangoma as our treasurer. So the rest of the party is not and has not been seduced by the machinations of people who think we can speak tribe and division in this present day. So we are a combat party, we are moving forward, and we will move forward.
And as you said earlier, the common goal right now is to defeat ZANU-PF. Many, like myself, would like a little bit of clarity on how this grand coalition is going to work. For yourself, as the guest in our seat today, where do you see yourself in this grand coalition? When and if you win against ZANU-PF in 2018, where does Tendai Biti see himself sitting and leading the country? Which office?
Very important question. As I said before, we are in a crisis, and Zimbabwe has never faced this great cataleptic convergence of multiple crises. We've got a crisis in the economy. We've got a crisis in a body politic that has become so toxic and divided. We've got a crisis in social delivery, where hospitals are going on without medicine, where in some provinces, Midlands North for instance, 40% of kids who are supposed to be writing grade 7 exams, O-level exams, have pulled out. We've got a broken down social crisis. Look at the high rate of divorces. Look at the high rate of bohemianism in our country. We've got a crisis of cohesion. Look at the massive levels of intolerance that are pervading our country. Look at the hatred that has become so thick in our country that you can touch with a hacksaw. The level of intolerance between Zimbabwe and Zimbabwe is probably close to Rwanda in January of 1994, before April of 94, when 1 million Tutsis were killed in the genocide. So we need a comprehensive solution to our current status quo of instability.
Because the next question I'll then ask is, we're all very capable of pointing out what we feel is wrong with the country, as you are so articulate and apt in your description. But tell us what your solutions are.
The solution is very simple.
Yes.
Number 1, the opposition must come together to give our people a chance. And we have come together under the banner of the MDC Alliance and placed Morgan Tsvangirai as the leader of this alliance. And we're in the process of negotiating with other political parties in order to make sure that they all come to this party and we don't divide the opposition a vote and we give our people a chance.
You have been on record as saying that, before we get to number two, you've been on record as saying that the elections in the past have been rigged by ZANU-PF in their favor. Yet you seem to think that you're going to win through an election next year. What's different from what you thought about the elections before and what you think about them now?
The elections in Africa.
In Zimbabwe, sir.
I'm coming to Africa and then Zimbabwe. Elections in Africa are a challenge because of the concept of electoral authoritarianism. And electoral authoritarianism is a situation where you have a facade of an election, but the substance is undemocratic. The substance is impossible. So you've got three things that have defined and characterized Zimbabwean elections. You have capture, corruption, and coercion. So capture, I'm referring to the independence of those who run the election, the independence of the election management body. And
Are you insinuating that ZEC is not independent?
I'm not insinuating. I am saying and submitting that.
What evidence do you have?
ZEC and Rita Makarau are not independent.
What evidence
and
do you have to validate this claim?
They are not capable of running a free and fair election.
Correct.
That's
what
number
evidence do you have?
Just look at the current voters PVR process. In Bulawayo alone, in the Bulawayo alone, less than 2,000 people have been registered. Just look at the bias towards the rural areas as opposed to the urban areas. So ZEC, under no circumstances, can be described as a credible body.
So less than a month into the BVR process, you are convinced that ZEC is biased and that the way they've rolled out is not in favor of all parties.
It's so clear, it's so self-evident. Right now, as I'm talking to you, in the rural areas, you have the institution of traditional leaders under the eye of, or the nose of ZEC, which is busy organizing communities. Traditional leaders are
they not using traditional leaders for information dissemination?
No,
is that not the mode of communication in those areas?
To coerce traditional leaders to go and whip people in the
and you have
rights.
This information as a fact?
With this information, in effect, we're in the process.
Which area in particular can you pinpoint?
We're in the process of compiling a court application to bring against the Zimbabwe Election Commission. And just on the independence of ZEC, the 2013 voters roll, despite the multiple court orders, ZEC has not been able to provide us with the 2013 voters roll. Despite multiple
but the 2013 voters roll does not fall under ZEC's jurisdiction.
It does fall under ZEC.
No, it doesn't.
It does fall under ZEC, Ruveneko.
This voters roll of 2018 is what ZEC has now taken over.
Yeah, let me explain the law. Let me explain the law. In 2013, we came up with a new constitution. That new constitution was used in the 2013 general election. And that new constitution placed the control of the election, the control of the voters roll under ZEC. So ZEC is the mother and father of any voters roll in Zimbabwe. Up to now, they've not been able to provide us with the 2013 voters roll. And if
you 2013, year yanzi null and void. 2013 when there is a new BVR process that has completely stated that the old voters roll does not exist entirely.
Yeah, let me just demystify the BVR. There's nothing magical about the BVR except that your biometric features are incorporated. At the rate that ZEC is going right now, I've just given you the statistic of Bulawayo. At the rate that ZEC is proceeding at the present moment, we'll probably need 30 years for ZEC to register everyone. In every country that ZEC, that BVR has been used, and I'll give you 5 key countries: Ghana, Nigeria, Zambia, and Kenya. The process is required 2 elections before the process was right. In all these countries, the election management body is required a run-up of 3 years before the voters could be validated by the electorate. So here, we're expecting a miracle that there will be a correct BVR, a legitimate BVR vote in less than 6 months. The president gazetted the BVR exercise from the 14th of September to the 15th of January, a period of less than 8 months. It won't work in Zimbabwe, just like it didn't work in Ghana first time, just like it didn't work in Nigeria first time, and good luck Jonathan was able to pull up a surprise election, but when it worked, he lost to President Buhari 2 years ago.
So just to be clear, you feel that ZEC is ill-prepared, that the BVR process itself is warped, and that the 2018 general election is not going to be free and fair because the voters' roll is not going to be up to par.
Allow me to elaborate further on
Go
the
for it.
BVR is science. BVR is technology. So one of the things that is so key, and that has been so key in all these other countries that I've given to you, is that the data capturing itself must be live. So if you capture data in Remembrance Mbari or in Chipinge, there must be immediate transmission of that data to a command center electronically. And we can do that with all the technologies that we have. So in Kenya, they had internet which immediately facilitated the transmission of data to the command center. We as opposition have insisted that the data capture must be live. ZEC have refused.
But they're legally allowed to refuse.
If they were independent, they would have accepted because there is
But your interpretation is that they're not independent.
Of
But
course
as they are registered as an independent body, they are well entitled not to
Yes,
share
but
that
they're
information
captured.
with anybody.
They're captured. They're captured. That's why they've refused. And we're not asking for the information to come to us.
What are you asking
We're
for?
asking them that you transmit the data live to command center so that is not corrupted. So what is happening right now, they're using little flash disks, little sticks, which they punch in a UPS portal on a computer, which we don't know where it sleeps, we don't know its house, number one. Number two is the challenge of the requirement of an affidavit pertaining to proof of residence. So, you know, if you were to have, let's say, 2,500 centers, you would need 2,500 commissioners of oaths or lawyers to commission those affidavits. So thousands and thousands of people are being disenfranchised because the majority of people, the majority of centers do not have commissioners of oath. But I'm a lawyer.
That have been asked to participate. Would you avail yourself to be a commissioner of oaths in this process?
My law firm can do that. We can volunteer.
So have you deployed people?
That's not the point.
It is actually, because it's a problem,
the point
and
is,
you need to be part of the solution.
Why do we need an affidavit to prove residence?
But you know what? I love this point, because in a lot of our discussions, this point comes up again and again and again. But Ndoji, Biti, are we still going to continue to contest it, or should we just move forward?
Rules are not. People are not made for rules. So rules are made for people. Right. So rules can be adjusted.
Okay.
Rules can be adjusted. Remember, the next election is going to be polling station based. So all I need to declare is that my polling station is Gombo Primary School in Zvaresekwa. Once I declare, I can't lie because I can't go on that same day to vote in Moods. So once I declare and I sign a declaration.
So you feel somebody's declaration is sufficient?
It's sufficient. And
as opposed to the proof of residence.
Because
their logic of the proof of residence is so that they can allocate you the correct polling station.
Yeah, but you can do that. You can do that in a declaration. And if you do not tell the truth, you are prosecuted. So all we need is just to use a form that says, I, Ruveneko, I declare that I'm a resident of XYZ Budiriro Township. That should be good enough. And remember, because we're doing it electronically, it should be so easy to flash out multiple registrants. So those people who have voted, who have registered to vote at multiple addresses should be kicked out immediately. So I don't see why we can disenfranchise the majority of Zimbabweans by insisting on affidavits in the rural areas, in the urban areas. Because in the rural areas, the chief is writing just a letter. The sub-book is writing a letter to say he stays in my area. So you can see the bias, the institutional bias already, which explains why 3 weeks into the process, only less 2,000 people have registered to vote in Bulawayo.
I want to come to this point a little bit later on, but let's come to our WhatsApp platform, 0775-897-897. That's your number to send your questions and comments to contribute to the conversation we're having tonight on Star FM with Tendai Biti, the president of the People's Democratic Party, as we discuss elections in 2018 coming up. Comments here on WhatsApp. Can you ask Biti Kuti if he thinks ZEC is biased? Why then is he convinced they will win this time? What has changed that makes him so sure? It's similar to something we touched on a little bit earlier, but it's a very important question.
Yeah, so elections are a process. They're one-off day which will come somewhere in July, but it's a process. And there are things that are happening in our country that make it imperative and obligatory for the opposition to participate. So the first thing, of course, is that we need to converge, and we are doing that in forming this alliance. The second thing we have to do is to sell a product that Zimbabweans can identify with. For me, what is key is, how do we revive the Zimbabwean dream? How do we recapture the Zimbabwean dream? How do we create that vision where every Zimbabwean can feel that he is a shareholder and she is a stakeholder? How do we create the conviction that I'm a Zimbabwean, I can have a job, I can have a home for my own, I can raise a family that will live in a sustainable Zimbabwe, consistent with Section 2 of our Constitution, which says we must create a prosperous, happy, just Zimbabwe. So we need to capture that dream, and that dream should be captured in the policies that we are going to write, and we are in the process of writing. So at the present moment, so at the present moment, we are in the process as an alliance and as PDP. We're in the process of constructing a document that will speak to the establishment of a transformative democratic developmental state, a transformative democratic developmental state. And I want to underscore the aspect of transformation. The biggest dislegacy of President Mugabe, the biggest dislegacy of ZANU-PF is the way that they've broken the social contract, the way that they've broken down our value system. When I grew up, I was taught to believe in strong Christian values. I was taught to respect the dignity of hard work, to respect education, and I'm a direct beneficiary of the benefits of education. Now, because of a broken down value system and a broken down social contract, you now have a society with the false idols, false heroes, a population that thinks that you can make shortcuts to achieving stability, economic and otherwise. We've created these false heroes, Vanachivayo and others, and so we need to transform. We need to. The transformative aspect is so important.
I want to come to this. I'm just going to ask, because you talk about this transformative democratic state, I believe.
Transformative democratic developmental state.
Yes. We are in Bade tonight, right?
Yes.
Which has a massive constituency, especially where young people are concerned.
Yes.
The youth vote is a very important vote and has been termed the deciding vote in 2018 elections.
Of course.
This language that you used to speak, this jargon, right? And I'm pinpointing this, some might call it trivial, but I think it's important, because the question I'd like to ask you is, how are you motivating for the youth vote? How are you motivating Zimbabweans to vote PDP or to vote MDC Alliance? Because even the way you connect nevanhu Biti, tiri munombare andifunge kuti pane muyouth anonzwisa kuti transformative democratic chakuti state zomboreva kuti kudii. Sandokumbura mumbotaurawo nesu sevanhu vari kuda kungonzwisisa kuti kwamuri kuda kuenda nenyika kwedu ndekupi, so that we can identify and not have to use these massive words that half the population doesn't have the privilege of understanding. Because what you experienced when you were growing up is not what the Zimbabwean youth is experiencing today. So the levels are completely different.
Yeah, nyaya iripo Cicero. Inyaya yekuti ngatimboisai zvepolitics aside, zvezvibhakera aside, tovaka nyika yedu nokuti vanhu vari kutambura. So isusu ku MDC Alliance, isusu ku PDP, tiri kuti ngativakei a shared Zimbabwe, an inclusive Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe yekuti munhu wese anoona chaanobata ipapo. Chiri kunyanyanyanyetsa nyika yedu inyaya yekuti vana havana mabasa. There is 95% unemployment.
How are you going to create jobs?
Vana marova.
Right. Mabasa acho tamaona kupi?
Chiri kunyanyonetsa nyika yedu inyaya yekuti politics dziri poisonous, dzekutukana, dzekudzingana mapati dzawandisa. We need, zvandogara ndichitaura pachirungu, we need to convert vicious circles of exclusion into virtuous cycles of inclusion. Ngatiedzei kubatana. So zvinhu zvinozikanwa nemunhu wese panyaya yeupfumi, unless tikaconcentrata panyaya yedevelopment, rural development, nyaya yemabasa, hapana zvataita.
Okay, just practically speaking, how are you going to create jobs? Let's say you are in power tomorrow or in July 2018. What is your solution to the job crisis?
It's a very, very easy. we have to grow the economy. Tofana kudza economy. We have to grow the economy. In the document that we are writing, we are working on a growth rate in real terms of 7% per annum. 7% per annum over a space of less than 14 years will give you $100 billion economy. So that is our target. To now create an economy in $100 billion. Izvazvinetse mukatora Ethiopia in 1990 payaimbwa nana Bob Geldof yanga ine GDP ye 3 billion. Nokuti yatongwa nevanhu vanoisa vanhu vayo pamberi vana Miles Zenawi iko zvino GDP ye Ethiopia yapa $62 billion. Zimbabwe yaimbo iri twice the size of Zambia. Zambia's economy was half the size of Zimbabwe. Iko zvino Zambia yapa $40 billion, Zimbabwe ichingoripa $10 billion, because tinopenga tinofunga kuti politics nemaslogan, vanonodya politics nemaslogan. People don't eat slogans, people don't. So to get the economy,
so you say you want to grow the economy. This is another question, just to corroborate what we're discussing now, from a lady called Rutendo. She says, what is their party promising the people once ZANU is out? It seems that is their only aim. That is what the opposition always says. But what are they actually going to do if they are elected? Not the usual wishy-washy answers.
So let me give you now, in a very short space of time, what we are going to do on the economy.
Right.
The first thing is that we have to restore macroeconomic stability in this country. Chanyanyo tadzikwa mu Zimbabwe mabatiro ehufumi wacho, the economic hygiene. And part of our problem is that when some of us used to say we must balance books, we need to eat what we kill, this government, and Chinamasa in particular, did not understand it. So they've gone ahead and created domestic debt that is now 18% of GDP. Domestic debt that is around $6 billion. So the first thing, we need macroeconomic stability. We need to live within our means. The second
how
thing...
are you going to do this? When I say how, I mean, for example, one of the things I know Minister Chinamasa tried to do was to lower the civil servants' wage bill. That's something that he had to fight against and didn't come out on top. So I say practically...
I've been a Minister of Finance before, and I've done it.
Yes.
I've done what I'm talking about.
To do? Yes.
I will revert back to cash budgeting. I will revert back to austerity, spending what we have. I did that, and the figures speak.
But you have nothing to spend right now. There is nothing to spend.
I'm coming to that. I'm giving you processes. In just to show how well we manage the economy. In 2009, our budget surplus was 35.5 million. In 2010, our budget surplus was 196 million. In 2011, our budget surplus was 2011. In 2016, Chinamasa's budget surplus is minus 1.4 billion. In July of 2017, Chinamasa's budget deficit was 2.4 billion. So we are saying the management of the economy, the hygiene of the economy must revert to discipline. You can only spend that which you have. Right. That's number one.
So number one, two, you don't have anything to spend right now. That's the honest truth. There's no money in Treasury, and Minister Chinamasa is not there, neither are you. Assuming that you win the election next year, and there's a new Minister of Finance, what then are you going to do?
It's not correct that there's no money in Treasury. Government is collecting $300 million every month.
So you're saying that you won't need to borrow if you end up in power?
I'll come to that. I'll come to that. The economy is not a jigsaw. The economy,
it's not.
Yeah, that's why we wrote a program called the Holistic Program for Economic Transformation, HOP. Number two, we have to retrench massive, excessive expenditure that is arresting this government. So one of the things that is problematic is the challenge that 97% of every dollar collected in Zimbabwe is going to civil servants. When I was Minister of Finance, I was paying 236,000 civil servants. Chinamasa has been paying 550,000 workers. Half of those are ghost workers. So we need to retrench people that are ghost workers so that we maintain our wage bill to at least 30% of total expenditure and 8% of GDP. So that's reform number two. Reform number three.
How many do you have, sir?
I'm coming. Reform. You asked me for a complaint.
I did.
Your viewer said wishy-washy. I want to let you know that we know how to run this economy.
But there's some that
number
are
three.
disagreeing.
Yeah, number three.
Just saying a lot of nothing.
Number three.
What does he promise Zimbabwe as a leader of an unknown party?
Number three. We have to have state enterprise reform. We cannot have parastatals that we are using to employ our sons-in-law and that are a serious drainage on the fiscus. So we need state enterprise reform. Number 4, we have to have reform of our mining sector legislation and mining environment. I was Minister of Finance when 15 billion US dollars was stolen from Marange alone. Therefore, we need a standalone.
How did that happen under your watch?
Because I was not Minister of Finance, and my principal, President Mugabe, would not listen to my complaints that people are stealing diamonds.
Had you noted that this is how much looting was happening?
Yes, I used to give him reports every month.
So
I
what
used
did
to
you
report
do about it?
nothing.
You just reported to him, and then he did nothing. And then you also said, "Oh, what can I do?"
I announced in every budget statement that I presented. I said people are stealing diamonds. I began to sound like a broken record, and that this is on record. So we need to come up with a Diamond Act.
That's frightening. That just happened under your watch. I think some people forget that, that during the GNU, that's when billions were stolen from our economy.
Of course, we had Obed Mpofu, and Obed Mpofu was the chosen son. He was untouchable.
But you were in the GNU. I think that's not a matter of pointing out names.
No, I have to. I have to.
Government of national unity.
A thief is a thief. I have to, because
but
these are our
resources.
Of the
thieving because you were there.
I was not part of the thieving. Number 5, we need to deal with attracting capital to our country.
Right.
We need capital in the form of foreign direct investment. We need capital in the form of overseas development assistance. We need capital in the form of domestic savings. And we need capital in the form of capital flows to our country.
Where do you
now,
place the diaspora here?
This is where these are foreign capitals. Yes. That's the current account.
Do you place a high value on them? I mean,
of course, there's Zimbabweans. They have to contribute.
But there's lack of confidence, lack of security, lack of just policies that allow for this invitation.
It's more than that. There is no one who trusts this government. There is no one who trusts this government. That is why, if you look at the figures, there is a massive drop from 2013 to now, as opposed to 2009 to 2013. Even though fundamentally they were not major policy chiefs, what simply happened is that a new group of people came on board. That capital, that workers, that business people did not trust. And we are trusted. We have friends in the international community. I can assure you, I've just spent 2 weeks in the United Kingdom. In June, I was in the United States of America. In May, I was in Brussels. I can assure you, Ruvenoko, that if we have change in this country and we have the right team running this economy, we will have, within a very short period of time, a capital injection of US $2 billion. That will happen as a result of trust.
I want to look at the elections. Before you carry on, while we're still on that point about this confidence, going into the election, people will say, who are you voting for, right? They'll look at a party and they might even look at an individual. Do you think that Zimbabwe perhaps needs to migrate from politics that centers around individuals and politics that centers around policies and systems? Because regardless of who's in power, Mr. Biti, there should never be, Zimbabweans in the diaspora saying, Iowa, we're not going to invest in the country. Shouldn't it be about the faith in the country and the systems as opposed to faith in who's in power?
Well, we have been arguing. If you read our rest documents, we've been making the point that you are making now, and which is the point that we need, for the first time in Zimbabwe, to create a coalition of winners, to create a team of winners. And that is what we are trying to do in the MDC alliance. We have to graduate from the situation of personalities and big egos, and graduate to an issue, in the status quo where Zimbabweans and Zimbabwean political parties are determined purely and solely on what they can put on the table and what they can put on the...
Where are you going to sit? We didn't get the answer, unfortunately, earlier when I asked that if the grand coalition or this alliance wins the elections next year, which office do you want to hold? You yourself, as Tendai Biti.
Yeah, let me be very clear. Morgan Tsvangirai is our leader, but quite clearly, we will decide as a team which person goes where, depending on his or her abilities. The point is not what position I will take.
You're not concerned about that.
I'm a lawyer. I'm a top human rights lawyer. I'm not in it for a personal position. I'm in it because I have a steep sense of injustice, and I want my country to be run well by leaders who love it, which is the problem in Zimbabwe. We've got a love deficit at the present moment.
Are you running for your constituency next year, Harare West?
Harare East.
East, sorry. Are you running again next year?
If the alliance deploys me there, yes, I will do that.
Do you want your constituency back?
I want to save the people of this country. I want to save the people of this country, and part of what I'm doing, and part of what I do best is I have lots of ideas, and that is the contribution that I will give to the people of Zimbabwe.
All right, 0775-897-897. We are in our last 10 minutes of our program tonight. I'm Ruveneko hosting Mr. Tendai Biti as we discuss the Zimbabwe elections coming up next year. This is hashtag Z2018 if you're tweeting, and we are bringing you this program together with the Election Resource Center. That's ERC Zimbabwe on social media. A comment here from Chief Nerera in Belvedere. Ramzi, good evening, Ruveneko. Mr. Biti seems to be suffering from some kind of philosophical inconsistency. He bemoans low numbers of voters who have registered on the BVR so far, and yet his stance is actually discouraging to potential voters. Please remind him that this is the political players like PDP who should be in the forefront of encouraging citizens to register because they are the ones who stand to benefit. I like that comment. Shouldn't you be taking all your efforts into mobilizing voters as opposed to picking at what ZEC is or is not doing?
Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. We've got people in teams that are on the ground encouraging people to register to vote. And we are also not fools. We've got a duty to point out the faults. We've got a duty to improve on the system. And that is why we're in constant engagement with the ZEC. And when they don't listen to us, we approach the courts as we have been doing.
So you're spending time in courts when you should be spending time on the ground.
You didn't listen
mobilizing.
To
you did say you're also mobilizing.
I said we're mobilizing.
You did.
We've got teams that are...
What is your strategy? Is it digital? Is it on the ground? What are you doing?
The first one is physical. So we've got physical teams that are in constituencies that are busy registering people. We've got a competition running. So as PDP, we're having our second anniversary on the 26th of October. And we've got a competition that says the district in Zimbabwe that is going to register more people than any other will win a vehicle. So that is a way of registering people. I was in Highfield West on Saturday, and every person who produced a slip to prove that he had registered for PVR, we gave him some incentives. And I was very pleased that the majority of people who produced their slips were women. So we are encouraging people to vote. But the system is flawed, and we have a duty to point out to the flaws so that the powers that be, in particular Rita Makarau, can improve on the system. So there's no contradiction.
So you're meeting the people on the ground. What do you make of the ZANU-PF strategy of these youth interfaces that they're conducting in all 10 provinces?
Well, every party will do what suits them. When the opposition fights ZANU-PF, they're not fighting the party per se. They are fighting a system which is captured and controlled by securocrats. So we have to fight. I said at the beginning that there are three things that affect our election and its legitimacy, therefore. It's capture, coercion, and corruption. And those things all act and work in favor of ZANU-PF. And that is the essence of electoral authoritarianism.
A comment here on WhatsApp, 0775-897-897. You literally have 5 more minutes to engage our guest in studio tonight. A comment here, these guys, like Tendai Biti, are good at causing confusion. Now he is busy talking about ZEC, yet the coalition are in Amsoro, and their candidate for coalition is not feeling it. Especially Biti is very confused. What do you say of the state of your alliance leader, Mr. Trangirai, given his health being very fragile? Is this a confident decision, and is he the best horse to back in next year's election?
That statement is ironic. It's clearly coming from someone who belongs to a party whose candidate is 94 years and can hardly walk.
I think it would be good if you answered it specific to yourself.
Yes, we have absolute confidence in Morgan Trangirai, and none among us is fit enough to play doctor to his life. We are going to support him and we'll stand with him.
And you think that he'll make it through the period? I mean, there's been reports how he's been frail and how he's been fragile, in and out of hospital. Is this the best thing to do?
Yes, that's what we have chosen. That's our decision as Zimbabweans, and we owe him that.
And none of you are actually afraid to contest him? Because this is exactly why you left the party in the first place. Reasons of saying that he is no longer the candidate that you desire. What's changed, Mr. Biti? Your politics seems to flip-flop, you know? A few years ago, you're out of the MDC. Now you're joining the alliance again. What is the Zimbabwean supposed to believe you actually stand for? When one minute you are saying, no, he's not the guy. And then the next minute you're like, in fact, he's the guy.
Our differences with the MDCT were never about a person. There were differences based on objective issues. But in 2018, we have decided to subordinate those differences in order to give our people a chance. So whatever I might feel about the MDCT, it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. We have to give our people a fighting chance, a fighting platform.
You've gone back on your word. Years ago, you were saying, look, I stand by my position.
When we went to Mandela, on the 26th of April 2016, we were clear. We need a new narrative in Zimbabwean politics.
And Mr. Tsvangirai is a new narrative?
We need a new,
since
let
1999?
We need a new narrative in Zimbabwean politics based on three things. Number one, depersonalized politics. Number two, the politics of convergence, the politics of getting everyone together. So what we are doing is consistent with our Mandela document. Number three, we need a politics that is based on issues. That is why in the last 2 years, we've crafted a document called Arrest. We've crafted a document called Hope, Holistic Program for Economic Transition. We've crafted a document called the National Transitional Authority. And now we're in the process of crafting this document, the Transformative Democratic Development of State. So we've been true to our principles that we agreed on the 26th of April 2014.
All right, fair that you would say that, but I still go back to say that you have not been consistent in what you stand for as an individual. This interview today is about you and not necessarily about the party as a whole.
I believe in democracy. I believe in the rule of law. And all my life I've been fighting injustice. You need to look at my record at the University of Zimbabwe, where I used to throw thrones against injustice. You need to look at my record as a lawyer, where I've participated in some of the country's greatest judgments against injustice. You need to look at my work at the Ministry of Finance, where I made a difference to the life of our people. So I've been consistent in fighting ZANU-PF, in fighting oppression, in fighting authoritarianism.
And also fighting within your own party that you were a part of. No one is discrediting your history, Mr. Biti, and where you've come from, and what you fought again, and which stones you threw at whom. The question is going forward. How do we continue to put faith in a leader like yourself when 1 year you're here, the next year you're there, and now you've gone and done it 180 back to where you started?
I'm a member of the MDC Alliance, not a member of the MDCT. Yeah, a member of the MDC Alliance and not a member of the MDCT.
But you have said that in next year's election, the leader of that alliance is Mr. Morgan Tsvangirai.
So what's wrong with that?
Nothing is wrong with that. We're asking about the integrity of your behavior.
He was my leader in the 2013 election. I voted for him. He was my leader in the 2005 election. I voted for him.
But
he was my leader.
On him.
I did not.
Why did you form your own party?
I did not. Because there were objective differences with the MDCT, not with Tsvangirai. I've said, listen to what I'm saying. I have said, it doesn't matter what I think, what anyone in Dotito thinks, what anyone in Chendambuya thinks. We have to give our people a fighting chance. We have to put our people first. And putting our people first is getting everyone in one corner to defeat the immediate opponent, the immediate challenge, which is ZANU-PF. Whatever differences we may have, let's sort them after that election. And that's objective. The Kenyans did it.
That sounds messy if you ask me, because I even asked you where you want to be in 2018, and you said your objective is just to beat ZANU-PF.
Yes.
How do you go to an election telling an electorate
how do you go to
an electorate telling the people that we actually don't have a structure?
But we do.
Just want to beat the existing
But we do have a structure. In 2002, Kenya, which is in a worse mess than Zimbabwe because of tribalism, he had 19 opposition political parties, but they all came together to fight the creature called Khan.
Well, do you really want to use Kenya as an ideal example right now?
Let me finish.
With what is going on right now?
Let me finish. Yes, I can use it. Let me finish. In August of 2001, they formed a coalition called the National Rainbow Coalition with the election in December. They put aside all their differences for that one cause. We Zimbabweans should do that, and we are doing that. We put aside our differences for the good of our people so that we give our people a fighting chance. And that's what we are doing.
Well, thankfully, I'm not the person you have to convince. I'm just one of the 7 million potential voters that you need to convince going into next year's election. And this is what these dialogues are about. There's some comments still, but I don't think we have an awful lot of time. We've got about 1 minute. But here's one. I don't understand a situation whereby BT and people in the opposition allow ZEC to run the elections without reforms. It's like using ZANU-PF to topple ZANU-PF. That is very impossible. I'm not going to register to vote because it's a mere waste of time.
He's a cynic and ahistorical. We have to register to vote. We have to vote. Notwithstanding that, the first part of his statement is correct. We need an election with reforms, but we are not going to demobilize our people. We are participating in this election. We know the challenges we are facing, but we have faith that there will be a favorable outcome. There are so many things that are happening which not even ZANU-PF controls. ZANU cannot control the implosion of the economy. ZANU cannot control the age of Robert Mugabe. ZANU cannot control the acerbic serious fights. So all those things create a situation where the opposition must do the minimum it can do, which is to get together, write in amazing policies which we can do, reach out to the youth, speak to the youth, and run a solid campaign. The rest in God's hands, and this God we worship will take care of us.
Going into the election, sir, it is clear that all the reforms demanded by the opposition have not yet been met by ZEC. If you lose next year's election, by the government, if you lose next year's election, are you going to cry foul behind these reforms not having been put into place?
When you go into an election, there are objective factors which people look at in order to determine whether a ruling party can win. So there is no ruling party anywhere in the world in a free and fair election which can win an election when 95% of the people are unemployed, when 79% of the people are living in extreme poverty, when all the population cannot get a single dollar from a bank. So in a normal situation, ZANU cannot win this election. So ZANU are going to try and steal this election using the securocrats, the electoral authoritarianism, as I said. So, of course, if they win and they go against the grain, it will be an illegitimate election. That's clear as a pikestaff.
So this is my question again, and you can answer it plainly.
Yes.
Are you going to cry foul if you lose the election? Because by virtue of choosing to participate, choosing to participate in the election, you're saying that it's credible. And then if the outcome is not in your favor, what are you going to say?
Our participation, and I'm going to use a technical term, forgive me for using this. Our participation is without prejudice to the omissions and commissions of ZANU-PF. So we are participating in this election with a heavy heart, without prejudice. If they steal it, we'll go around Zimbabwe, go around the world, saying to the world, these people are illegitimate. We have done it before, we will do it again.
That is it from Mr. Tendai BT right here on Star FM. I'm Ruveneko. Thank you very much for joining us, sir. We wish you all the best in the build-up to the elections and in the election itself. Thank you so much. That's it from us and the ERC right here. I'm now making way for the news at 8 o'clock. I'm Ruveneko. Good night. Be good. And if you can't be good, be safe.
Welcome to the Zimbabwe Elections Debate, the ultimate place where all election-related matters are debated ahead of the 2018 general elections. Brought to you by the Election Resource Center, ERC, resourcing for electoral excellence.